We're still here, Stefan.
Need to supply the electricity some way.
He and other critics say renewables are good, but this may be difficult to achieve without some major economic impacts.
Thanks, Jessica. Russian fighter jets are coming too close for comfort to U.S. drones flying above Syria. Fox News' Jennifer Griffin has the latest from the Pentagon.
What's new today is for the first time, the U.S. has evidence that the Russians are firing into ISIS-controlled territory using Tomahawk-like cruise missiles, and now they are menacing U.S. aircraft in the skies over Syria. It's not clear how accurate or effective those Tomahawk strikes or Tomahawk-like strikes were today.
Syrian troops are also launching a ground offensive in central Syria. Concerns about plutonium stocks rising in Asia.
Japan reportedly plans to open a plant as early as next spring that can reprocess reactor fuel to make hundreds of nuclear bombs a year. Any plutonium produced is supposed to be generated for electricity, but Japan has no use for it. Its reactors are out of commission following the 2011 Fukushima disaster. Still, investors are aggressively pushing for that plant. Meanwhile, the U.S. just inked the Iran nuclear deal, and word is agreements with China and South Korea are next, but on less restrictive terms, which some lawmakers say sends the wrong message. Monica Ricks, Fox News Radio.
Solid gains on Wall Street, the Dow gaining 122 points. I'm Kathleen Maloney, Fox News.
Here's the forecast from your Weather Authority for WBLF. Tonight, a few patchy clouds and fog with a low of 48. Tomorrow, clouds and sun with a high temperature of 69 degrees. And then for Friday, variable cloudiness, scattered showers, a high temperature in the upper 60s. For Saturday, clouds breaking for some sun, breezy and cooler with a temperature in the low 60s. From your Weather Authority, I'm Regina Miller for News Talk 970 WBLF.
Restaurant East College Avenue in the Giant Plaza, September 28th through October 4th. Try the Apfel Schnitzel, tender pork schnitzel.
My name is Skip Rivalbus, Stephen Davis, and the crew here talking Penn State football here on a nice fall evening here at State College Wednesday night. Talking some stories about the past. We have a special guest in here tonight. Who do we have lined up? We have Mr. Richard Gardner, former teammate of mine. Very excited to have him on the show with us. Cornerback.
All right.
Chicago. Walked on the team. I'm not going to share all of his story, but I'm very excited for him tonight. And
that's awesome.
He'll be reaching out about 7:15. Awesome. So we got a chance to recap last week's game here at the Army, and to talk maybe a little bit with everybody with the game upcoming this weekend. Man, we got a lot to talk about. So where do we want to start with last week here with Penn State and our Army? I mean, you come for some initial thoughts? Yeah, I mean, that's simple option. You know, it's a difficult offense to prepare for in 1 week. But I do think Penn State did a good job, even though the game was rivalry. Army basically came in top 5 in the nation as far as rushing yards, averaging about 556 yards a game, and Penn State cut that in half. They also came in only yielding 3 sacks and barely even passed the ball. And, Penn State put up some good numbers. But it was difficult, and the score reflected that. We're still a little banged up. We had some good news. I think Quan was effective, getting some reps. Doesn't look like he's really hitting right now. Last week is last week. We got a big one on our hands this week. Win. Stefan, what do you think?
Well, I think you're cool. Hey, it was a terrible day for weather. Wasn't a real good day for football. I think we did good in some ways, and kind of like your coach was saying, I mean, especially for defense, I didn't quite understand what Coach Franklin meant, but, when you have a team that's half your size and they cut block you every play, not only do they tough to make that play, you normally suffer a lot of injuries, and he just could not expect to suffer any more injuries, and you saw what happened. Angelo Mangiero went down the center, and that was a big loss for us. I don't know how he's going to do, but the backup center that came in, Wendy is first of his last name, Lawrence, I think it's number 55. Yeah, he came in and did a really nice job. So, offensive line, they kept playing. They grinded it out where they had to grind it out. You got some other young guys carrying the ball, getting some things done. We were able to stretch the field some, even in the bad weather. We need to stretch the field some more, and realizing, that we got to keep working to get it done, kind of like Coach was saying. We got it. It was a rough game. The game was sloppy, conditions and everything else. But when you go against a triple option and you have a talented quarterback, and you saw A.J. Scherr, listen, the guy is a big play running back, more like a running back than a quarterback. The one time he put it up, they caught us sleeping on defense altogether. And of course, that's the one thing that we came back from, and they went down and they scored. And let me tell you something, they're a competitive team. And from what I saw with Anthony Zettel and some of the other 3-point, I think I saw Hackenberg in some of the post-game conference stuff. Said, hey, those guys in the academy, they're not there to do any foolishness. They're there to play hard. They're there to win. But I think what we were able to do is put a game plan together and, again, get more and more people ready to play the Big Ten, Big Ten schedule. Hopefully we can get back some folks that were healthy. And, of course, that aren't healthy, get them healthy. And obviously, I'm not going to say anything too bad. Some of you might have heard and read the post-game comments by Coach Franklin. I don't want to be in his bad side. So he pretty much put it there that he's tired of, especially the reporters and the media being negative, and he said that he's going to be positive even if it kills him. That means he's being real nice and he's real mad. So all right, Coach Franklin, don't worry. I'm not going to add anything else to that. But no, I think we're going to be okay. It's going to be a tough game. Indiana, of course, with a very near upset of Ohio State. Played all the way to the end to overtime, or near overtime, I should say.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
7:34. Ohio State. That was a great game last week, and I thought Ohio State could have maybe lost that one. Penn State's first world challenge in the Big Ten, and I think Jacob Hicks mentioned interesting statistics about Penn State and Indiana. And it's not. We don't like this, but the numbers are what they are. What do you got? Yeah. Well, couple things put a little pressure on that. Overall, Penn State is 17-1 versus Indiana. And also, we are 18 on the room. So we're really not leaving any room for a loss. We did beat Indiana last year, 13-7. Very good game. The Hoosiers, like Skip said, are 4-1 right now. We're 4-1. Hoosiers haven't really beaten anybody yet. They've let us a minimum of 22 points every game. Some as high as 47. They won their first game 47-48, and that was against Southern Illinois. They beat FIU 36-22. They beat Western Kentucky 38-35. They beat Wake Forest 31-24. So they're letting people score. And a couple interesting stats I wanted to share to compare as far as opponents' total offense. Indiana's letting up 502 yards per game, and Penn State's only letting up 284 yards per game. So, that's definitely a lot of opportunity for our offense. Sure, and I think the running game, control the game, eat up the clock, get points, keep their offense off the field. I think we'll be okay. I mean, I'm thinking positive. Yeah.
Hey, you better. If they want to pull the plug on this show, or we want to go to any more practices. No, but hey, listen. One thing I got to say. Let me just say this. Coach Franklin also realized, and it was more. I mean, I guess he expected from us, but I think the only thing he does have to realize is people are just going to keep coming at him. That's just how it's going to be. He actually talked about they were going to play with what they had, and that's what they've been doing. They've been playing what they had. They're 4-1. I think he said there were only 40 more teams in the United States, the D1, that were 4-1. So he's like, hey, knock it off. Stop dogging us, man. And you know, hey, look at what we have, you know. And the thing is, we're getting it done, and we were getting it done, you know, all around, you know, with people like Nick Scott, you know. And then you see somebody like Mike Gesicki make a play. I saw that it was his birthday, and he had a big touchdown catch. And, you know, just seeing, I think, Kabinda with 14 tackles and 2 sacks. I mean, that's just crazy. That young guy is out there balling out real hard. I mean, for him to just do that and then get a critical sack at the end of the game, you know, to put the game away. So they've been in situations. And then, you know, I give Indiana some credit that they played with Ohio State. And kind of like Cole was saying, on the other hand, hey, I think they may have some of the same issues we have. They're trying to find a rhythm and find some things that were going on. And some of those things worked last week. And now they got to come into State College and do it. And let me tell you something, coming into State College for any team, as Ohio State found out last year, is not easy for any game. And any team that's coming in, depending on what the circumstances are. So, hey, we can look at the statistics. We can look at them in our favor. We can look at, and I think that's what Coach Franklin got mad about, is because somebody said that they were a big spread to win, and he said, "Man, I don't know anything about point spreads, and I'm never going to try." So, yeah, he did. He said, "I don't know anything about point spreads."
Before I forget, a couple guys we know have birthdays today. Today is David Clark's birthday and Blair Thomas' birthday.
That's scary. Guys both from the '86 team, man. Clarkie and B, man. That's, oh my gosh! Don't bring them together. No, let's keep those guys apart. But happy birthday to some real good dudes. Like I said, to Busy B, man. What a guy, what a teammate. You know, he did his thing, man. And if you go back, Cole, and look at where he came out, see, we had the same issue in 1986 in that season. People don't look at that Alabama game where, you know, there was all these other things going on. We had injuries. I remember Dwayne Downing was out, and we weren't too sure. DJ got the ball some, but then they started giving the ball more to Blair out of nowhere, and Blair made a difference, and they weren't ready for it. You know, that's what ended up happening, and then the backs started challenging each other. I think that's what we need to have. And, of course, Clarkie, I honest to goodness, I just have not seen anybody, I would say, I don't know if I've seen any football player that competitive, just in any position. David Clark, I mean, being his teammate in high school, you saw it. He played free safety and running back, and, and I think in one game he had like 200 yards rushing and 15 tackles on the other side. You know, and then he goes to Penn State, and a lot of people hadn't heard of him, and all of a sudden he makes noise, and he comes in for DJ in the 83 season and gets a 78-yard run and 77-yard run in the same game. So, Clark, he's just a great work ethic, good guy, great teammate, a guy you can rely on, man, and just two good dudes, man. But really passionate about all the things he does, and Clark is just passionate altogether. Passionate to the point where he's a little scary, but he's passionate. You got that right. You got that right. Yeah, absolutely. I can give Clarkie a call and see what's going on, man. Good.
Yeah, hopefully I'll make it back. And of course, next year will be the big 30 years. That's when it's amazing how time flies and we're having fun, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, that was a special time. And I think that's what Coach Franklin said as well. Again, he's going to have to realize it, that you mentioned in 30 years, and I think that's what the issue is. He says, everybody is expecting the 1982 and 1986 teams and seasons, and I get that. Well, he has to really, he said that, and that's the only one thing I want to say, bro. You got to really, if you said that, you better mean that, because that's the truth. And that's just how it is, Hey, people are all looking for it. We haven't had that ring in that time. I'm sitting here in my office. I got it on. And now what I realize is how rare that was. I mean, I'm so proud of it. And by the same token, I'm just looking at what else has happened and what other people have achieved beside that. Going through, I know, Kobe, you were talking about the seasons that you went through to go to some successful ones. A lot of you guys going to the league, that, like you said, some folks had heard of, some folks hadn't. And then just going here and now, getting ready. We talk about Forever Lions, seeing what the next group of Lions are going to do, what they're going to be, and how they're going to manage their lives in society and leadership and all those things. So all those things are exciting to me. And Coach is going to have to realize that, hey, not only do they have high expectations, man, people don't want to hear anything unless you win. Of course, we didn't have the Big Ten or anything, man. But winning, you know, is what people are used to. They're going to get it. And I do tell people on Facebook and all these other places, they did have some. Okay, fellas, y'all got to knock it off. Come to the games, cheer for the linemen. It's not he's right. We don't have it, but we have to, you know, push and get better. You know, the coach has to expect that we're going to say a few things, but then on the other hand, we've got to trust him more that, hey, he's going to do what he can with what he has, you know. And I think that's where we're at.
Yeah, he knows we all support him. Everybody's behind him. You know, you feel the pressure, but, you know, again, everybody needs to take a couple steps back here and say, look, you know, being on the threshold of a death penalty with the NCAA, coming through that with the trouble we had with the NCAA and the sanctions, we're still in the middle of it. You know, we're not.
Yeah, really.
We're not made whole. We're only halfway through. So
Right.
You got to put it in perspective. And I think some people miss out on that, and they don't realize that. You know, you got to be patient, man. Rome wasn't built overnight. You know, and those years that we had it, those 2 years, you know, it took a lot to get there. It took a lot to get there. And before the show, we're talking a little bit about, you know, guys like Dan Morgan who stayed the extra year.
Oh my goodness, Morg,
make that happen. Yeah.
Merg. Yeah, and let me tell you something. A guy like Dan, if people got to realize, this is what I'm encouraged about. People have to understand. As good as Dan was coming out of Ohio, Dan redshirted his first year. And I saw a guy playing, and I had never seen linemen that were athletes like that. I mean, Dan, tremendous athlete, and you think things are going well, and he's going to play a guard. And all of a sudden, Danny out of nowhere, you know, little by little is playing good, and we have a big game against Notre Dame, and he has a huge game against Eric Dorsey. So, but I think what everybody has to remember, and Danny and everybody else, it took us a while to get there. You know, him being able to redshirt and develop, I think, was important. You know, he stayed the extra year because he was really at a high point in the game, and I think that he was underrated. You know, looking at Danny, looking at Keith Radisick, and looking at Bucky Conlon, Chris Conlon, Stan Clayton. You know what I mean? We had all those guys. I mean, some of them were, I say 4 to 5 of them were like parade All-Americans. And it's not just by the magazine. It's that these guys just kept getting ready and kept being put in situations. And what's happening with Penn State now is all these individuals, especially both of those D lines, the way they're developing, I'm encouraged by it. You know, and of course, people said that they shouldn't have taken people out as much as they took them out. And that was a little odd that they were taken out as much as they were. But hey, Coach Franklin, you know, had a methodology with it. He saw the type of game it was. You know, you can say whatever, but when I say, you know, we're going to hit that stride, this is a big football game that we have at the beginning of it. I think the loss that we had from Temple and those other games and some games that we struggled to get a win. Like he said, I'd rather talk about a lot of these things with a win behind it. So those things are there, like I said, and I know that I'm looking forward to coming up on Friday night and be there at the game on Saturday. I wish it wasn't a 12 o'clock game, but hey, what can you do?
Get up early.
Yeah.
You going to be at the game this weekend?
Yes, sir. Be up there on Friday night.
Okay. Are you doing any tailgate after the game?
Well, actually, it looks like I'm probably going to have to find some of the folks that we were in. I know we were on radio, so I won't mention names. But there were some people and Skip knows who they are, you know, folks from State College, longtime folks who normally stop by. I just got a call from a good buddy of mine who was a big supporter. She said that they weren't going to be there. So, yeah, I mean, anything we can do, we can talk, you know, offline about some of those things. I'd like you to meet some of my friends that have been supporters and actually saw you play. That's how long they've been coming up there, and they may or may not remember when you mentioned some of those names. And I'm looking forward to getting together with the guys, and you know, and you bringing together these other folks that we haven't met, the next generation, the next folks that have played. And it doesn't seem like you guys have been out of football as long as you've been out of football. I was like, wow, been out of football that long? It seemed like it was like 3 years ago. No. You have to get up and go to the meeting. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens, man.
So we can always, that's open for a few hours after the game too. So yeah, it'll be a fun time. It's gonna be hopefully good weather for this Saturday. So it's nothing like a homecoming at Penn State. Like I said, I wish it was a 3:30 kickoff, but hey, we'll manage. We'll manage. But let's get back to taking a look at what's ahead here for us. I watched the game with Ohio State and Indiana, and I was impressed. I mean, these guys seem to have some size and some speed, and I think it's going to be a real test for Penn State this week to put it all together. And I think they've had enough trials, like you mentioned, Stephen, that to kind of trial by fire. We've come through. We got beat up that first game a little bit. Here we got lost, but I think that was a character building game, and I think Penn State has shown its tenacity. These guys are hard working every week. It's going to be I think it's going to be a hard fought out game. We're looking for a win here, and that'll make a great sim because this is just another building block. And before we went on here, I asked the question. I said, well, is this getting into the frying pan, or is next week getting into the fire? I said, I guess we'll find out. Because we're getting into the thick and heart of it, and not just but next week. Out at Ohio State's going to be, that's going to be the test. That's going to be the test. I mean, we're going to find out what Penn State football is made of when we play that game. And again, we're going to have just a foretaste of that this weekend. I wanted to ask a question, though. A friend of mine asked me this today about the stadium. The Browns about Buddy Dan. I don't, Dan Stone. I was talking to him today. Oh, yeah. I was talking to him today a little bit, and about the renovation with the stadium. They're talking about potentially renovating the stadium or building a new Beaver Stadium.
Right.
I don't know where I feel, but I know you guys are in a different generation. I wanted to hear. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts. I wanted to hear how you guys feel. And I'll share my point of view, but I wanted to hear how you guys feel. Do you think we should keep Beaver Stadium and renovate it, or should we build a new stadium?
Well, I guess what I see is, and as a college administrator, one of the things you look at is, I think let's talk about if we renovate it. If we renovate it, we've got to ask ourselves, how far is that going to take us? That we look at the amenities, anything from the way things are built to the sound, the way can it take technology. It depends on what it is it's going to cost and what would be the long-term effects of having that particular stadium. Now, I'm a purist in a lot of ways, but one thing I do realize being on the college campus and my job every hour of my job, but I can't get into it as I sit at my desk, is about change as well. So I would say, though, Jacob, I would be not opposed to us looking at the plan for it, but I guess we'd have to ask ourselves, from the plan of it, what is it going to represent? And I would say if you can do something new and you can bring in the old remnants with it all the way through, that's Penn State, and we know it's Penn State, and we're not concentrating on trying to keep up with everyone else, because we want to have nice things, and some of those stadiums you had, like in the 70s and the 80s, that were those multi-use stadiums, I think we used to play down at Riverfront Stadium in Cincinnati, a terrible field, awesome looking, because you've seen it, and they had to get, and after a while, you got to start taking a look at, if you're going to go ahead and build a new stadium, how do you make it Penn State? Who gets input on it? I know Coach Franklin was asked that during the press conference as well, and he said, well, I'll deal with that at the end of the season. I'm sure I'll be part of the conversation. Very politician, but it's the truth. I would say, hey, if we can keep Penn State tradition and we can do it the way we need to do it, what can we bring with it to dress it up, to do something? What can we do with it? Somebody keeps calling me from Atlantic City. I'm going to have to excuse myself from this call. I'll be right back on. I think it's normal. Okay. No problem. I'll be right back.
Okay. My 2 cents on this one is, I agree with what Stephen said. But, you know, I look at the history of Beaver Stadium. And I look at the history of the stadium itself. And I see a stadium that has been piecemealed together. I mean, a little here, slap this on, add the next thing. And I think, you know, I think it's time to build the best stadium in the country. I mean, I'm talking better than Dallas Cowboys. I'm talking better. I mean, we want to have something. Let's make it the best in the country. Okay. So I have no problem saying, all right, let's ring up the, you know, just like they blasted three rivers, and they made. I like Beaver Stadium for football, and baseball in a good stadium, but that's no fault by purpose ones he's talking about. I don't think we need anything that's fault by purpose. I think it should just be built for football. And I think, you know, we can, you know, let them ratchet up the dynamite and take all your pictures and, you know, make it all on the boom, let it all come down. And let's build something that is beyond what people ever thought. What people, I mean, and how do you keep this all part of the Penn State tradition? Well, you want to have it within a few mountain. Okay, you have all those things that are built into that as a given. You're always going to have that looking off over the east anyway. You're going to see the mountain. Okay, but I mean, let's build an all-sports stadium that is state of the art. It's better than anybody else's. But I want to have that stadium with a retractable roof. So, and I want to keep the grass real all the time. You know, I don't want to ever go that artificial stuff. I want all real grass, and we put that roof on it that's retractable. Okay, so you know, weather's never an issue for a game. And then the other good thing about it is we can host a bowl game. I mean, this isn't. I mean, sure, it's great for Penn State. You know what? Penn State can make a lot of money hosting a bowl game every year too. You know, a state-of-the-art stadium in the country. That's true. All right, that could be the next venue that everybody wants to come for the national championship game. All right. You know what I'm talking? Than the Cowboys got out there. That's fine. We got to make it higher, way up there, because that way they got punted, because that was always a problem for that guy punting. You know, let's build it bigger, better than everybody's. And then one request I have, and it's selfish, is I want one side of the field, just one level, be all glass enclosed, from like, let's say, from the 20 to the 20. Okay. All right. And that's all the letter. We're going to do the field, not stuck back in some end zone somewhere, just looking off to the mountain. I see. I remember. And I was going to. I remember. Yeah. I don't want to be an afterthought. I think because that is going to be your best recruiting tool for future generations. That's a good point. It's great for the letterman, okay, but this is the tool. I mean, when you have a kid come in and say, "No, look, the former player come here, you get to come home, and this is what you get." Right? That's what I'm talking about, man. And that's just one level of it. That's ours. You know? And they can build it around the rest of the stadium and make several layers up as they go with the stand. But I think we need to have that one. And they can sell all the others going around it. But we just need to have that, because I think that's Penn State's way of saying, hey, you know what, we know you guys, we would have this once you guys play the ball. So I think that's my kind of my wish list for that. No, I really like that stuff. I think you got to do it. You don't want to have it. You know, you got to put it all together. And you got to make it where it is just, it's bigger, better than anybody. Where everybody thinks like, man, why did we do that? Why did we do that? That's what everybody's saying. Why did we do that? Because that's when people know we are Penn State. So that's what I personally, that's my 2 cents for it. It may not ring well with the traditionalists who just say, oh, we're just going to keep this old monstrosity here. But you got to keep it all times. And even we went through renovations even when we were here. I was, as a freshman up at Penn State here, they didn't even have the roof finished up the whole we're Frankston, and John Bruno was putting the ball out on the roof, you know? So, I mean, we're all part of this. There's changes always taking place with facilities. So, regardless, let's, you know, I don't want to keep over the Joneses, man. I want to have the Joneses looking, you know, we want to see them in the rearview mirror about 20 cars back. You know, we got to make it right. That's what you said. So I'm curious about yours.
I like that skill, and two things I like about what you said, the recruiting aspect. You know, I think that is something that all of us need to look at as our future. You know, as moving forward as a program, because, you know, obviously we all have this passion for Joe, you know, and we want to, you know, we want to remember those times when we came out the tunnel and we had those big wins. But I think that's a great point with recruiting. I think we got to focus on the up and coming players, you know, like you said, and also my other part that you mentioned was being the best. You know, just making the best type of stadium. And you know, and I remember even being recruited in high school, I looked at Penn State as being the best. You know, that, you know, coming out of Chicago, that was the best place I felt, you know, as far as academics, football-wise, coaching-wise. You know, I felt
Rich Gardner.
So, I think I see the shot sound coming on. Is that shot sound right there?
Yes, sir.
Hey, this is Mr. Richard Gardner, very close friend. You know, admire you, Rex, for all your accomplishments and your story. Beautiful family. Trained together. We came in '99 together, and we graduated the same year. But I would like for you to share your story, Rich, because you got such a unique story.
Well, before we talk about his story, real quick, let's get his side.
Okay.
Let's get to what this is good. This is good.
Okay, all right. So fast,
Well, Rich, we're talking about the idea that you want to keep Beaver Stadium and have a new one. So, what's your thoughts?
Of course, you know, there's a lot of history in Beaver Stadium. I mean, has that, you know, the stadium has grown so much throughout the years, and that's the, you know, stadium that we built there. You know, I actually personally, literally built that stadium during a summer job with one of the construction companies, local construction companies at State College, but actually, you know, laid out the foundation and the concrete for the addition to the stadium. So, man, memories at that stadium, and of course, I would want it to remain.
Okay. Well, you probably wouldn't like my thoughts. I'm saying, hey, let's tell the biggest band that's never got in the country last. When the Jones is looking up, they're like 20 car lengths back, and retractable roof, state of the art, an awesome view of the film of the Letterman's Lounge, you know, for the middle of field, you know, a great view, great recruiting tools, and
yeah,
you know, because the stadium up here, because I grew up here, and over the years, this past half century of my life up here, and it was kind of been piecemeal together. So I'm thinking like.
I know I'm going back and forth, man, because I'm in the middle of stuff. I don't know how I held you, but keep talking. So basically, and I do. I'm in the middle of not an emergency, very nearly one. I should have left work, but I'm in the middle of one. Basically, what you're saying is, should we just go ahead and build another stadium because it's been piecemeal?
Well, I told your coach, I said, hey man, strap it with dynamite, they take it down like through blow it all up, let's build a bigger, better look, retractable roof, better than the Cowboys, better than everybody else. There's no stadium, the best stadium in the country, and let's host it. Let's just see the place to come for the national championship.
Hey, cool. That's where you're at, right? I mean, or what do you say? Oh, you guys get caller. Listen.
We have Rich Gardner here, number 35, shutdown quarterback. I remember one of my favorite highlights of you, Rich, was the Nebraska game at home. I think Lord was the quarterback, number 5. And threw maybe like a little out route. I can't remember if we were in cover 2 or what coverage we was in. But you ended up sniffing it out and had a pick 6. And that was like one of the biggest plays of the game to get our offense going, man. And we ended up beating the Browns. It kind of like turned our season around. So tell us a little bit about your, how you got to Penn State, your experience, and you ended up being drafted. Tell us about all this stuff.
I appreciate it, man. First off, I appreciate being on, man. And Cove, man, we go way back. So great friends. And I told you this before, but I used to read articles about you when I was in high school. And I was like, who is this guy? Cove? Who is this guy? But, yeah, from high school, I just wanted to play Big Ten football. Wanted to play Big Ten football. And, my parents, as well as extended family, it gave me the opportunity. Everyone pitched in and kind of came up with my college fund to walk on to Penn State and live the dream. So with that said, Jay Paterno, one of the first coaches I talked to after I sent my highlight film in, and they expressed interest. And just to back up, before Jay Paterno, Kenny, who was there? Shank. Oh yeah, Shank was there. Yeah. And so he was the one that my pops reached out to, which initiated my conversation with Jay Paterno. So through Kenny, I was able to get the opportunity to walk on at Penn State, and it was awesome. Worked hard first 2 years, earned a scholarship, and the rest is history. But definitely enjoyed all the years at Penn State, and definitely appreciate the leadership of Joe Paterno.
Speaking of Joe, tell us an experience you had with him. Just kind of expand on that with Joe. Tell us some more about him.
Well, we all know Joe Pa, man. He is very old school, very traditional, and that was his style, his approach, and I definitely appreciate that. We had to go to class, no skipping class. We had to clean our facial hair. We had to look the same on business trips, So I don't know. It was just more of developing us men that I appreciate. And I remember one time I was walking to class and I heard someone yelling at me. And I'm like, who was yelling at me? And it was Joe Paterno. He pulled over and yelled at me because I had earrings in my ear, So that was the kind of person he was. And he was just steady on us. And definitely appreciate it now, fast forward into the future where I'm at now. So. Exactly. Oh yeah, man. He yelled at me. See, my favorite player was Deion Sanders. He was my favorite player growing up, and Deion was a little bit of showboater, one of those guys. And I don't know, I just took that attitude to the field. I excelled on the field and, did what I had to do. But, there was moments in which I kind of got beside myself and, celebrated a little bit. So there was several occasions where, Joe Pa had to, pull me to the side and, give me a little bit of yelling or two. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he said, cut that out. He said, cut that out, God, no, I'll see you back to Chicago. I heard that so many times. I'm like, man, it's like any day he might actually send me back to Chicago. I don't know.
When he doesn't see or recognize you, he's saying something to you, you're off his radar. So he was always watching and had a pull.
Yeah.
So you finished Penn State, you went in the draft. What was that like? Did you get any? How many teams were calling you before you actually went in the draft?
Oh man, that was a great story. But I was at State College Trinity Draft, and this was when they had 3 rounds in one day. So I was projected second to whatever round, and we just hanging around with the family, which made it awesome. And I finally got drafted at round quarter after 11. Actually, I got drafted. Got a call from Tennessee Titans. Jeff Fisher was the coach then, and flew out to Tennessee the next day. But the whole NFL experience was excellent. It was everything that I dreamed of. And it was just a pleasure playing for great coaches, actually. Jeff Fisher is a great coach, former Chicago Bear, 85 Bear, and and home as well when I went to Seattle Seahawks and finished my career there. So NFL career was nothing short of a dream.
It became business. I mean, it's all, the interesting thing with sports, with a lot of guys, you do it because you love the game. You have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
It's a transition from where it's, one thing is a scholarship, and once you get a scholarship, of course, it's trying to make the next level. And once you get there, but did it ever take a transition in your mind where, hey man, this is business, and I really got to, this is it. I got to do everything I got. Is there a time when that actually happened, or were you just one of those guys that, you were just always there, always 110%?
Oh yeah, of course. You want to give it all. Regardless of the circumstance, but it is business. People get paid a lot of money, to get a win and to produce, stats or whatnot. So that business aspect I definitely felt. But what's most important is the support I got from my family. So I think that's most important when guys transition to the NFL and just being under that level of pressure, to perform. Consistently at that level. And it just takes a support system that, the NFL may not be able to provide for you. So it was a smooth transition. The NFL career was great. And it was because of my family and just a great support I had.
That's phenomenal because, we all see it on ESPN and the stories from different guys where lives just really get chaotic, turned upside down, and I'm sure of what being on the NFL yourself, the teams you're on, and the things you see in the transitions in people's lives, pressure, stress, money, all this stuff. You see people's lives become, tragic, and
right.
And I'm sure I know you're a blessed man, and you're thankful for having that support system, as you'd say, your family and everybody behind you. But, without mentioning names, did you see a lot of guys really struggle? Because I can't speak now, but I think like 30 years ago, it was a lot more footloose, fancy-free, and nowadays I think a lot more people are trying to guide these young fellas coming in. You still see guys like Denzel losing their minds, going out to Vegas, doing crazy stuff, but I don't think it's as rampant maybe as much. But I can't speak to that. It wasn't there, but maybe you could.
Oh yeah, I definitely hit on that, and of course you had guys that fall through the crack that just folded under the pressures, as I was saying, But I think that the media contribute to that, and they sensationalize, these athletes that might slip up, So it kind of, exaggerate the kind of exaggerate the numbers when it comes to, guys falling or slipping through the cracks. I think for the most part, it's at worst it's even. You have guys that have a great career, regardless of how short it is, and manage without having a mental lapse. And then you have guys that, don't fare so. But I think overall, NFL, PA, provide a great support system, and they continue to develop, create programs, support programs to help those players.
Yeah, I think it's great that they do that because you have 50-some guys that's like 52-man roster, and
right.
One guy does one thing, makes a stupid mistake, and it can happen to anybody. And man, it's front page headlines, man. I mean, it's all over the world. And and those are the stories that, like you say, the media sensationalizes. I'm going to say this because I think it's the most sick, perverted way that they do it. Now, how many guys got it together?
Right.
You know? I mean, all these, like you say, slip through the cracks. I think the stories that slip through the cracks that the media doesn't report on is the guys who do have it together. The guys who are good husbands, the guys who are good fathers, the guys that don't do right things in the community. You know, they don't report on that because you know what? It doesn't sell. It doesn't get their name at the front page of Sports Illustrated for the guy that wrote the story. You know, and that's the saddest part about it. And you know, and our society kind of contributes to that too, because you know that's the tabloid stuff that people pick up and spend their money on. So, you know, I understand it's supply demand, but I'd like to see that change. But we aren't going to see it because you know what? The stories on ESPN 2020 and stuff like that they got going on, they don't want to. It's not going to sound like the guy who lost it all and gambling or womenizing or whatever they got going on where they made shipwreck of their lives, because that's a hot juicy story. But the guy, you know, who kept his life together, took care of his family, did all the right things, you know, that's not going to sell that well, you know, and that's what's too bad, and I think that's what our society is missing out on. And I don't want to editorialize too much on that. We have this opportunity to mention that because I think that's something that these guys out there reporting don't talk about. And you make everybody at Penn State proud because of the example you've had in your own life here, as you say, living the dream. I wanted to ask Big Cody, you on? I think Stephen had to drop. Okay. I just wanted to see if he wanted to jump in on a question or anything. But yeah, go ahead. No, I just I'm loving to hear the stories about the transitions because here's what I've also on my mind, because I saw this happen at Penn State here too with some guys when I was here. We had guys who mentally and emotionally would break down because of the pressure and the competition on the field. And I'm wondering, you know, in your experience in NFL, do you see that happening there as well?
Say it again. I'm sorry.
My question is, you know, maybe in your Penn State experience as well, you can relate. And without saying the names of the guys, but I remember when I was here, my freshman year at Penn State, and we had a guy that just up and left in his shorts and T-shirt and sneakers, hopped the bus, went to New York. Nobody knew where he's at because he mentally, he just kind of, you know, he lost it. He broke down, and he just snapped, you know. And I'm not going to mention any names because you know I love the guy. He's a phenomenal person, you know. It was a crisis in his life, and I'm wondering in the NFL side, do you see that? In your experience, or maybe even your Penn State experience, have you seen guys mentally and emotionally have difficulty dealing with that stress of performing?
Oh yeah, most definite. And I think a large percentage of that comes from family pressures. You know, I honestly think that with a great support system, you'll be able to handle any kind of environment. You know, and that's what I found with my teammates on the college level, NFL level. You know, those pressures, when the pressure, you know, got a little bit tense, you know, there was no one for them to lean on. So they bottled all that up, and next thing you know, it was either substance abuse or domestic disturbance or things of that nature, or where they just had a complete mental breakdown, you know. So I definitely know a few teammates, and I just think that contributes to that, and that's unfortunate, you know.
Yeah, not everybody has that family to go to, and you know, it's food either on your table or off your table in the NFL. You know, it's either you know, hey man, you know, your family, hey, we're gonna eat steak this year, or you know, we're going for, you know, we're gonna be eating hamburgers, you know, and you know, and that's. Trying to make light of it, it's not light at all because, man, you get caught. Honestly, at some point in time, everybody in the NFL can't play forever. At some point in time, they're going to say, well, you know, we appreciate what you've done, but, you know, we really can't use you this year. And you know, and that's a tough pill to swallow. And there's guys who kill themselves. You know, some guys who just can't handle it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's tragic. But now, do you think the NFL at this point is trying to provide more support for that whole experience? Transitioning in and out, or do you think it's kind of always the same?
Oh yeah, most definitely. The NFLPA has a program called the Trust, and the Trust provides, you know, financial support and provides job opportunities, coaching opportunities, you know, and for players who have played, you know. So NFL is stepping that up. I actually qualified for a scholarship myself to further my education. I am in health and fitness, you know, so I work with athletes and as well as the general population. So the NFL Trust, they send me email for me to apply. I applied and I got a scholarship for over $1,000, you know. So there are definitely programs that the NFL has, but, you know, with, you know, what I think the focus should be now are guys that are leaving college that do not have a shot at the NFL, you know. And I think that'd be the next step as far as providing programs for these athletes, because there's nowhere for these college athletes who made millions of dollars from their prospective universities. There's nothing for them to fall back on, you know. So after the 4 or 5 years, it's like, okay, yeah, well, we, you know, you did your due diligence. We appreciate it. And you're on your own now, you know. So I think that there should be some kind of program provided for athletes of all levels.
You touched on a unique subject, and maybe I'd spend a couple minutes on it. Now, the Supreme Court came out on that ruling with the NCAA and paying athletes, and I mean, I wanted to curious what your thoughts on it. I mean, I personally think it's a tragedy because I think if these athletes are bringing in the millions of dollars, and that your name and your likeness out there, and it's put on a video game, and it's making us count these millions of dollars. You know, I think that you should be entitled to some of that coming back. And
Exactly.
You know, I know that's not maybe the politically correct thing to say, but you know what? Penn State makes millions of dollars every comes up here to play golf, and I think everybody.
Yeah.
Penn State, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm not just saying this because it's last week's game, because this is something that touched on to me, because I spent 10 years as a veteran in the military myself, and this is something that really, really I find disturbing about Penn State. If Penn State wants to get all the glory for Military Appreciation Day at the expense of being paid in a full sellout by all the fans and at the exploitation of the military, because Penn State does not open up its wallet or give anything back to the veterans here. In fact, I personally know a kid. I get him to church every Sunday. This kid here has passed. He filled out the form and stuff, and he's still in the Marine Reserve. He still doesn't have enough money to come here to Penn State. He's working a job while he's going to school, just trying to survive. And he's a veteran.
Yeah.
He's serving now in the military. And Penn State's so damn expensive and greedy that they're going to moderate their tuition, everything like that, for a man that's actually still serving in the military to try to go to school. That is, shame on you. When it comes to veterans at Penn State, don't give me lip service that you're all about wanting to help the veterans. You know what? There's games that don't sell out. We'll put a lottery together and give those tickets away instead of holding out.
Right.
When it comes to military appreciation, don't do it off the backs of the fans, okay? Penn State got paid in full last week for that game, and they wanted to get the pat in the back saying, hey, we did this for veterans. They didn't do nothing for veterans. They got paid.
Right. Right.
And the people that get the pat in the back, they're the patriots, as far as I'm concerned, that gives it back the way the fans did at Penn State. Kind of a lot about the fans of Penn State, but nothing about Penn State. Because until Penn State opens up its wallet and puts some money where their mouth is, I don't want to hear about anybody say Penn State's about the veterans, because they're not. And that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah. Hey, but I have to go. But before I go, I wanted to add on to what you said, and the way that the veterans are being taken care of is horrible, and I just think that's an indication of this nation. And in Chicago, there's over 10,000 homeless veterans in Chicago without, without health, without proper health care, without proper room board, so that's definitely a problem. So I just think that the way the Penn State needs to go is, take off for where, Joe Paterno left off. He was a humanitarian in my eyes, so we just need to, just keep advocating for programs to help those that are maybe taken advantage of, or, things of that nature. So college athletes, maybe they should get cut a check on their completion of their diploma, saying, hey, thank you, here go a check to go further education, build a business, and the veterans, of course, they should get at least, free education at Penn State, in my opinion. So, I mean, there's many things that we should do, and I think that Penn State, for the most part, is, headed in that direction, or at least building leaders to be able to continue for what, Joe Paterno and other leaders have left off, But I have to go, but I appreciate everything, and you guys have a great show, all right?
You're always welcome, and it's your microphone, so thank you again so much for coming out.
I appreciate it.
God bless you, man. Have a good night.
Yeah.
We're that fast. It's our college football. We're down almost a minute here left, so we can get going, sign off here. Let's do some quick picks, and we'll sign it off for tonight. We have kickoffs at 12 o'clock, Illinois and Iowa. Good game.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna lean with Iowa. Yeah. I think Iowa's I like Illinois. Obviously, I'm from Chicago area. I grew up watching Illinois. My brother-in-law went to Illinois, Bill. Got a little tired there, but Iowa, they've been steady at it. They're showing some opportunities of being ranked, so I'll go with Iowa.
All right, well, tell you what, let's take a make our ID break here. We'll go right back. We'll give it our pick.
Weatherbell.com's Joe Bastardi, weekday mornings with me, Jerry Fisher, in Center County this morning on 970 AM WBLF, Bellefonte State College, the voice of Center County.
Fox News Radio, I'm Jane Metzler. The U.S. Coast Guard ending its search for a container ship that went missing off the Bahamas during Hurricane Joaquin. 33 crew members on board, only one body recovered.
While the search might be over, our support and commitment to the families and loved ones and friends of those on board has not ended, nor will it.
Anthony Chiarello, CEO of the company that owns the El Faro. The number killed in flooding in the Carolinas now 19. All but 2 of those victims in South Carolina, where the bodies of 2 people who drove around a barricade were recovered in a truck that plunged into rushing water where a road had washed out. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley warning people of the very grave danger that still exists in her state.
Of the thousands of dams across the state in South Carolina, 62 we are monitoring. Currently right now, 13 that have already failed. So we will continue to monitor those as we go forward.
3 people now in custody in the fatal shooting of a California yoga instructor who was killed while walking his dog.
These are the same 3 subjects that were identified early on in our investigation by a number of people who came forward almost immediately, who reported persons of suspicion, people who were acting strangely, they seemed out of place.
Marin County Sheriff's Captain Dave Augustus, no motive for the crime. President Obama calling
Doctors Without Borders International President Dr. Joanne Liu to apologize and express his condolences.
The apology for a U.S. airstrike that killed more than 20 people at a hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan over the weekend. Though the U.S. military is investigating, Doctors Without Borders wants an independent probe. Fox News Radio, fair and balanced.
Forget fans, Yakov and Skip, we're here getting ready to wrap up our show here tonight. Big good stuff with Davis had to take off earlier, and we're just going through some of our picks here. We just got through our first one here. We picked Iowa over Illinois, and we have Maryland and Ohio State. 12 o'clock kickoff as well for that one. What are you thinking, Yakov? Pretty obvious, right? I think we're going to see that one happen there. And of course, a little bit later today, we have Minnesota and Purdue.
Yeah, I think that's a good one, Skip. I'm liking that action. We've been waiting for this for so long. We've been going on with all these little, teams that we haven't heard of, but now we're starting to get some good games. I like what I've seen from Minnesota. I think Purdue has a good team as well, but I'm going to go with Minnesota.
I think I'm with you on that one, too. Then 3:30 kickoff, Wisconsin at Nebraska. Another good game.
Yeah. Wisconsin, I actually have a former high school friend of mine, pop friend of mine, graduated from Wisconsin. Hearing him play basketball with him, he's always talking to Wisconsin. Got the year. But Wisconsin's been steady. I mean, that program. I mean, even when Coach Alvarez retired, he became athletic director. They've always been a good team. I mean, I just have to give them tribute. So I'm definitely going to go with Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think they have an edge this year. I think they do. It'll be a close game. I think they're going to, Wisconsin by at least by 3 on that one. And then now here's another one that's interesting rankings. Northwestern number 13 and Michigan 18. Again, Northwestern's going to be at Michigan. Well, good game this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, snowball. Rich mentioned earlier on the show, playing for the coach in Seattle. The coach in Texas that was Texas for the Titans. That was the former 85 Bear, and Harbaugh was the former Chicago Bear quarterback when I was in high school and elementary, youth football, and admired him. Done a great job in the NFL. I mean, they beat BYU. That was a ranked team. I didn't really see them having this much success this early. Northwestern did a great job. That's my backyard team. Pat Fitzgerald, he was a linebacker at Northwestern when I was getting recruited in high school, number 51. Great player, Big Ten linebacker. This is going to be a good game, but being at the big house, Fitzgerald going against Harbaugh, I think Harbaugh, I have to give him the edge.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. Michigan had a close one over Northwestern, maybe by 3. I think so.
Yeah.
And I think this one's not going to be too hard to pick here. We have Michigan State at Rutgers.
Oh, yeah.
I think Michigan State's going to win out. Of course, we have Penn State, Indiana. So, picking Penn State?
Oh yeah.
Right? Okay. I'm going to be the bad guy here. I'm thinking Indiana by 3. I'm looking at reality, man. And I watched that game last week. I watched Penn State against the Army, and I watched Indiana against Ohio State, and I'm just like, apples and oranges, man. Apples and oranges. And I think Indiana is up from that loss, and they want to win, and they'll come here, and I think they're going to put it there. I think it'll be a 5-o'clock game, but I'm going to pick them by 3.
No, I like that too. I think it's got a lot of tone on both sides. I think Indiana, like you said, they just want to get to Ohio State, number 1 team in the nation. They got a taste of what it's like playing in the big league. They went out there and performed. Penn State, they know it's not at Ohio State level right now. So I definitely go with the conference. Penn State, on the other hand, they've been beating them 17-1 in the series. They beat Indiana last year. They're at home. But, this is our 6th home game in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, Penn State could easily get caught in a, complacency. So, but I'm going to go for Penn State, but I think it's going to be a tight game.
Yeah, I want Penn State win too. I just think at the end of the day, when I look at the two schools, I think we're just not there yet.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm still for the best. Well, it's that past hour already, man. So we're going to sign it off here. So on behalf of Big News Stephen Davis, Jacoby's, our running Skip Rose, thanks for joining the Lions Live on the Forever Lions Network. Doing that with all of the players and the fans. Thanks for joining us. You folks have a great night. Let's go Penn State with a win over Indiana. Lord bless. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Never heard of them, but it's a YouTube sensation. There are people that are out there. They have sites and blogs and channels, and they're really big. I mean, they've become big. This is a new world we're in, and there are people who are becoming famous through the internet. And there are individuals and there are families. And this family is a family out of Maryland. They were known as the Bratales, but that's not their real name. I don't know why. I guess they have a stage name. And basically, the family has chronicled their comings and goings on YouTube. And they've had millions and millions of followers. And one of the children, this is just, I think, a husband and wife and their 3 kids. There's a boy named Caleb and a couple of little girls. And, you know, they go through their life, and the little girl jumps on a trampoline, and they post that video, and 2 million people view it. I mean, I don't get it. I'm not following this exactly. I'm trying to understand it. But when real life and death stuff happens in this YouTube world, it gets weird. The boy, 13, died the other day, unexpectedly. And